Hi everybody, my name is Charles Wookey. I'm the CEO of a charity called A Blueprint for Better Business. So Blueprint is an independent UK-based charity working with large organisations on organisational purpose, acting as a challenge to large companies in particular in what it means to become purpose-led. We were formed actually after the financial crisis in the UK when a number of business leaders and others came together really concerned about the breakdown of trust between business and society. And their belief was that businesses couldn't sort this by itself. Nobody was going to trust a group of business leaders who just got up and said, trust us. And more fundamentally, there was a belief that what we have here is a system problem, a way in which society and business relate to each other, which was deeply broken. And what was fascinating was that the group that came together drew on thinking from different sources of wisdom in society, philosophy, from faith, from economics, from neuroscience, in thinking about the ecosystem and the way in which business works and how that might change for the good of all. Now, since our work started in 2014, trust is still an issue. But what's really interesting in the last year or so is that actually people are recognizing that there's a much bigger question here, even than trust in society. And that is the whole economic system. We need to move from an economic system optimized for growth and profit to an economic system which is optimized for human well-being and a sustainable ecosystem. This is a massive system change globally, and business has an incredibly important role to play in achieving it. And this isn't to say that growth and profit are no longer important. Of course they are. The markets and the private sector have a crucial role to play. But what it is saying is that growth and profit are no longer ends in themselves. We need to grow in ways that produce human well-being and a sustainable ecosystem, and we need profitable businesses producing profitable solutions to the problems of people and planet, and not adding to the problems of people and planet in the process. And that is the core of our work at Blueprint. Now, it's interesting when people say, well, what is purpose, and why this whole focus on organisational purpose, and where does that come from? If you think historically, and you go back, the notion of the corporation as a legal entity is very old. It goes back 2,000 years, in fact. And until the 19th century, most organisations actually had a charter which defined their purpose. So, in London, for instance, in 1815, the London Heat and Light Company had a purpose which was to provide heat and light in the significant good of the people. That was there in its constitution. And what we then have in the 19th century is the development of the joint stock company. And when that happens, nobody answers the question. The law doesn't answer the question, what is the purpose of this company? We create this brilliant legal construct which allows people to share and pool capital at risk for all kinds of reasons. And we've seen brilliant companies form which generate fantastic wealth and genuine prosperity. And we've seen the same legal instrument used for incredibly exploitative purposes. So the purpose of a company as a legal entity is something which is up for definition and up for grabs, and has been since that formation, which is partly why we have this ambivalence in society and in the world about what the role of business actually is. And different people have given different answers to that question about what the purpose of a company is. And in the 1960s, for instance, I remember reading a speech by Bill Hewlett from Hewlett-Packard, and he said, why does any business exist? He said it exists because people come together to do something they can't do by themselves. They solve a problem, meet a need. Making money is important, but it's not the reason. It's one outcome of doing that really well. But then what happens is in the 1970s, Milton Friedman says, no, I've got a very clear answer to the question why business exists. Its purpose is to increase its profits within law and ethical custom. That's what it is. And this answer has become incredibly powerful in shaping the way many people think about what business exists to do. And it's an answer that was then combined in agency theory with a view about people. And that view was to say, well, people, for the purposes of work, are best assumed to be self-interested and motivated by money, status, and power. So when you put those two ideas together, the purpose of the business is to maximize profit. You simply incentivize people to act in their own self-interest and then behave in a way which enables the organization to maximize its profits. And that's the system we've grown up with in the US and UK context, certainly for a very long time. And we kind of tended to think that these are just the laws of physics, but they're not. These are just social and cultural constructs which have shaped hugely the way in which organizations behave, and we all assume people need to behave in business. And the great challenge that we face now is recognizing that the problems of the world require us to shift from these assumptions to two much better assumptions. Well, what are those? Well, one is to say, actually, within this joint stock company, it can have a purpose. It can have a reason for being, which is about the better world that arises from the business being successful. And profit then is very important, but it's a condition and an outcome of the business pursuing that purpose. And we can think differently about people and what motivates them. And one of the things that really excites me about the work we're doing at Blueprint is when we started, we asked this question of people from very different walks of life and academic backgrounds. What do we know about human beings and what really motivates them? And the answer is, it doesn't really matter whether you start with philosophy or whether you start with the great faiths or whether you start with neuroscience or whether you start with positive psychology. We know that most human beings in most circumstances were motivated by three things. Yes, of course, money matters, and in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basic needs are fundamental. But beyond that, there are three things that people seem to want. One is meaning. We're naturally meaning-seeking. We want to work in an organisation where we're feeling we're making a positive contribution to the world. The second is the quality of relationships really matters to us. We want to be cared and cared for. We want to be part of a human system and in an organisation where other people are respected and their dignity is respected. And the third is that we want autonomy, mastery and development. We want to grow as people. We want to be in an environment where we're stretched, where we're enabled to develop ourselves and our own capacities and thrive as people by doing that. These three things appear to characterise us as people. So the insight was that, okay, if we get organisational purpose right, and clearly define an organisational reason for being, which talks about a better society. And if we then create the process and structures and tools within an organisation which switches on these latent capacities that people have to commit, the intrinsic motivation, if you like, that we have to want to work for an organisation which values people and provides meaning, then we will get both a better society and better business, because people will be orientated to activities which benefit society, and they will also feel better and that they're growing as people in the process of doing that. So for us, purpose has this double function of both orientating the organisation and also switching on this latent capacity that we all have as people to commit to a shared worthwhile endeavour. But it's not just about what the purpose is, it's also about how this business shows up. So why is purpose all the rage now? I mean, what is it that's going on in the world today which means that all of this is becoming so current? And I think the two reasons I've just given, which is about this disconnect within people in terms of employee motivation, that's very obvious in large companies, and also around the externalities, social and environmental externalities. People have become much more aware of those. Those are two reasons. Another reason is, as the generations are shifting in the workforce, millennials, which are going to make 75% of the workforce by 2025, Gen Y, Gen Z, these are people coming into the workforce who want to work for organisations that are delivering benefit to people. And they are motivated differently. And I'm very struck by the number of CEOs I talk to who are really being attacked almost by their own children, who are saying, what are you doing leading a business which isn't benefiting society? And they're really listening to their own kids. And they're saying, well, we have to shift. If we want to create environments in which the next generation will want to come to work, we're going to have to move. Another big factor is social media. Businesses can no longer hide. You can no longer hire a PR department to give you a false reputation. The say-do gap is very obvious. And so businesses are forcing to look at internally at exactly how they show up and what they're really motivated by, because that's going to be obvious to everyone. Another really encouraging and more recent phenomenon is the role of investors. Investors increasingly now are recognizing the long-term alignment of purpose-led business that care about environmental and social goals and long-term sustainable performance. And of course, it's not just on the environmental side, crucial as that is, that people are recognizing the disjunction between not dealing with environmental risks and long-term financial performance, but also realizing the opportunity that business has in business terms to benefit and profit from the way in which they contribute to solving the problems of people and planet. So there is this terrific business opportunity as well. So all of these factors are coming together in pushing businesses to think really differently about what purpose-led business involves and to do something different. So what does it involve to have a purpose? Well, now when we started, people said, oh, why on earth should I be interested in purpose? Give me the business case. And there is indeed a good business case for doing this. But if you just do it for the business case, then all you're doing is saying, yeah, we're just still here to maximize profit, and we've realized that this purpose gig is a great way to continue to do that, in which case you completely miss the point. There are very good business benefits to actually doing this in terms of long-term performance, in terms of employee relationships, in terms of customer loyalty, in terms of lower costs of regulation, and indeed lower costs of capital. But these are all aspects of what's really going on. The fundamental shift is a shift in thinking about what the business exists to do. Now, when we started, people said, well, why should we do this? I don't get asked that question now. The question I get asked is, I get it, Charles, we need to be purpose-led. How do you do this properly? One question. And secondly, how do you know? How do you assess? Those are the two questions that business leaders are asking us now at Blueprint and where we're working on with them. But a risk I push back to them is to say, okay, you can have a good purpose and you can mean it and have a strategy that follows from it, but still be an awful place to work and still not really care about your customers and suppliers or the communities on which you depend. So don't kid yourself that just having a purpose is going to get you out of jail. What you need to do is to do the deeper work of thinking about business as a series of human relationships, which is where our 5 principles and Blueprint's thinking about people comes in. And our 5 principles, if you look at them, have the purpose piece in the middle. Have a purpose that delivers long-term sustainable performance, and think about the quality of relationships and the dialogue that you need to have continually in order to pursue that. But then also think, and you'll see if when you look at our 5 principles, these 4 quadrants, which in our view are integral to business success in this way of thinking. They're not instrumental to maximizing profit, but they're part of how you want to show up because you want to have a positive impact on the lives of all of those the business touches. So you want to be honest and fair with customers and suppliers. You want to be a responsible and responsive employer. You want to be a good citizen, and you want to be a guardian for future generations. Those are our 4 principles around having a purpose that delivers long-term sustainable performance. And they fit together as ways of thinking about a business as a human system nested within a broader societal system where the whole point of the business is to contribute to the common good, and by solving the problems of people and planet, enable and grow shared prosperity for everybody. It's a really exciting opportunity and a way which aligns with long-term business success. It's all about creating a better business and in the process creating a better society.